long before the stars, long before Cybertron, long before the word Transformer ever echoed across the void, there was only hunger, and its name was Unicron. He was not created. He was a living black hole, a god of destruction shaped by the chaos that birthed the universe. Where he moved, galaxies withered. Where he fed, reality bent. His purpose was singular: consume all order, return everything to nothing. And in the silent cradle of the cosmos, something watched, something feared. From that fear came a plea. The universe, desperate to survive its own annihilation, birthed a counterforce not through war, but through will. A spark of radiant purpose forged in the heart of entropy. Its name was Primus. Not a warrior, but a balance. Not destruction, but design. Primus was not the end, he was the beginning. Where Unicron consumed, Primus created. Where Unicron devoured sparks, Primus seeded them. But alone, Primus could not stop the void. So, he forged 13 children, not in his image, but in his purpose, each with a piece of his power, each with a role in the grand design. These were not soldiers. They were gods. They were the 13 Primes, and their birth was the first hope the universe had ever known. The dawn of the Primes, architects of a new world. They were not born. They were declared. In the void between stars, the 13 stood the first voices of order in a universe built on silence. Before there were Autobots and Decepticons, before cities rose and battles echoed across the steel skin of Cybertron, there was the Forge. Not a place, a moment, a divine act. From the core of Primus, 13 divine sparks emerged, each carved with intent, shaped with care, gifted with a singular truth. They were the first, and they would never be equaled. The forging of the 13. Each Prime was not just a creation. They were concepts, manifested. Where Primus was the architect of life, the Primes were the builders of meaning. They came into being with no past, but with a future encoded into their very frames. And yet, they were not tools. They were sentient, sovereign. Each held a fragment of Primus's will, not as a weapon, but as a responsibility. Some felt it as light, others as burden, but none could escape it. Together, they were unity. Alone, they were divinity. The powers of the first. No two Primes were alike. Each embodied a unique aspect of Primus's intent, not just to shape Cybertron, but to shape its destiny. Prima, the first to emerge, wielded the Star Saber, a blade forged of cosmic law, a beacon of justice, but not always of mercy. Vector Prime, master of time. He walked through eras as easily as corridors. His burden, to watch all futures and act in none. Solus Prime, the Forge Master. Her hands crafted wonders, from the Requiem Blaster to the very sparks of life. She loved deeply, created endlessly. Alpha Trion, the Chronicler, keeper of memory, of names, of all things destined to be forgotten. He alone knew how it would all end. Liege Maximo, the Speaker, wielded words like blades, charismatic, dangerous, necessary. He did not lie, but he never told the whole truth. Micronus Prime, the smallest yet infinite, a connector, a bridge between sparks, the foundation of symbiosis and combiner tech. Onyx Prime, the Beast, ancient instincts wrapped in divine logic. He communed with nature and reminded them all that evolution demands sacrifice. Quintus Prime, the Dreamer, touched by wonder, seeker of life in all forms. His visions inspired the first colonies and the first catastrophes. Amalgamus Prime, the ever-changing, shapeshifter, trickster, freedom incarnate. From him, transformation was born. Alchemist Prime, philosopher of the spark and substance, saw divinity in decay, meaning in metal, and answers in paradox. Nexus Prime, the first combiner, fragmented, yet united. Proof that strength comes not from singularity, but from balance. The Fallen, Megatronus, the warrior, loyal, feral, passionate. His rage was holy until it was not. Optimus Prime, the 13th, the final one. Born last yet destined to lead. He bore the Matrix. He carried the burden of all. Each had purpose. Each had power. But together, they were civilization itself. The Golden Age of Cybertron. Under their guidance, Cybertron flourished. They did not rule as tyrants, nor as kings. They guided, advised, created. The planet transformed from a barren metallic crust into a thriving civilization. The well of all sparks pulsed with life. The forge of Solus Prime echoed with new inventions. Cities rose. Triptychon, Metrotitan, and the earliest frame of Iacon. They seeded culture, not just infrastructure. Science, art, memory, these were their gifts. For a time, there was balance. For a time, the 13 walked among their creations as stewards, not as gods, but as guardians. And Cybertron sang, the seeds of hubris. But even gods are not immune to pride. Each prime, though divine, was sentient, and sentience invites ego. Prima grew cold, too righteous to hear dissent. Liege Maximo whispered too well his words divided, even as they inspired. Megatronus trained too hard. His rage grew too deep. Solus crafted wonders, but not all were safe. Even Alpha Trion, the wisest, began to doubt. And in that doubt, something stirred. A voice. Faint. Ancient. Unicron. He had not been destroyed. Merely waiting. Whispers of discord. Seeds of division. The greatest enemy of gods is each other. For a time, Cybertron thrived. Under the gaze of the 13, the planet sang in harmonic resonance. Sparks flowed from the well. Cities thrived. The stars were mapped, explored, and welcomed into a new order. But divinity does not endure in silence. And silence is where Unicron speaks. The burden of being chosen. Each prime bore not just power, but isolation. To be a fragment of Primus was to be apart from what they created. They guided life, but never fully belonged to it. They shaped a world that would never understand them, and they began to feel it. Solus, the Forge Master, crafted alone. Her wonders were used in wars she never approved of. Vector Prime, master of time, spoke in riddles none could follow, trapped in futures none could prevent. Liege Maximo, the speaker, saw lies even in truth. His paranoia became prophecy. Even Micronus, the smallest and most empathetic, struggled with connection. For how do you relate? To sparks you cannot truly join. In time, the 13 began to look inward, not as a council, but as individuals, as egos. And the cracks began. Ideological fractures. It began with a question. One Alpha Trion recorded, deep in the Axiom Codex, should we rule or release? The primes were made to guide, but some began to believe they were meant to command. That Primus had not just given them power, but dominion. Prima believed in law and law. He said, needed enforcement. Megatronus believed in strength and strength. He claimed, must act. Liege Maximo whispered that unity was a lie and that only influence could maintain peace. And others, like Solus and Micronus, warned, we were made to protect, not dominate. The debate turned to division. Meetings ceased. Accusations sharpened. Trust frayed. And somewhere deep beneath Cybertron, in the hollow void between dimensions, Unicron smiled. The first schism, the betrayal came not with war, but with love. Solus Prime and Megatronus were bonded not in law, but in spark. Their connection was legend. Her forge created weapons, his hands wielded them. But when she forged the Requiem Blaster, a weapon so powerful it could end planetary systems, Megatronus used it, not in defense, but in wrath. The target remains debated. Some say it was a rogue colony, others, a city of dissenters. Alpha Trion never recorded the details, only the aftermath. Solus confronted him, and in their confrontation, she died, not by malice, by collision, by rage, by accident. Megatronus fled not from justice, but from grief, and that was the end of unity. The fall begins. The death of Solus shattered what remained. Prima accused Megatronus of treason. Micronus wept and vanished into the stars. Liege Maximo laughed and then vanished. Vector Prime sealed himself outside of time, refusing to choose sides. The council was no more. Some stayed, some disappeared, others were hunted. Unicron, weakened but still present, whispered into the cracks. You were never 13. You were 13 fragments, and now you will break. And they did. Nexus Prime was torn into 5 sparks. Amalgamus scattered into myths and fragments. Onyx Prime turned feral and vanished into the wilderness. The Golden Age was over. The war had not begun yet, but the gods had already fallen. The great betrayal, the Prime's downfall. Gods do not die in war. They die in silence, when they are forgotten by the world they built. There was no final battle, no great clash to end an age. The fall of the Primes did not arrive in fire. It came in fragments, whispers, regret. And by the time the last of them looked back, there was no one left beside them. The catalysts of collapse. After Solus Prime's death, the 13 fragmented beyond repair. But it was not just grief that tore them apart. It was judgment. Prima demanded vengeance. He claimed Megatronus had not only betrayed the Council, but Primus himself. He wanted the fallen hunted, bound, erased from memory. But Alpha Trion refused. He argued that Megatronus was not evil, just broken. That to judge him would only shatter the last remnants of their purpose. The vote divided them. Only Vector Prime abstained. But time The very moment they debated retribution, trust was extinguished. Liege Maximo vanished into deep space, leaving behind encrypted messages that hinted at alliances with dark forces. Onyx Prime took his beasts and fled into the organic wilds of distant moons, declaring that the machine world had become unworthy of the spark. Quintus Prime, already half consumed by his own dreams, wandered off in search of alien life never to return. Micronus begged them to reconcile. No one listened. 2. The moment Megatronus fell, he was no longer Megatronus to them. He had no name, only guilt. Driven by torment, he built a tomb of stars around Solus's last resting place. His once righteous rage became a black flame. He wandered ancient battlefields, seeking Unicron's voice not to worship, but to challenge. And he found it. Or perhaps it found him. There are records, lost to time, that claim Megatronus struck a bargain. The power to bring Solus back in exchange for his allegiance. Others say, Unicron never offered anything, only emptiness, and that Megatronus surrendered to it. What is known is this: he changed. No longer a prime, no longer a god. Something else. The first to fall not by blade, but by belief. From that moment on, he was known only as the Fallen, the scattering of the divine. One by one, the remaining primes chose exile over extinction. Vector Prime, sensing what was to come, sealed himself in the folds of time. A guardian of chronology, a witness to the cycles that would follow. He would return only when the pattern of war repeated. Micronus Prime, heartbroken by the fracture of his kin, diminished himself, became myth. His spark scattered into thousands of smaller ones, the seeds of future minicons. Alpha Trion, seeing the path ahead, preserved what little knowledge he could. He erased records, sealed archives, buried truths. In his final act, he recorded the Covenant of Primus and vanished into the folds of history, waiting for a student worthy of memory. Amalgamus Prime, ever-changing, chose to become possibility itself, a shifting presence that would appear in moments of transformation across time. Nexus Prime, torn into 5 pieces during the chaos, survived barely. His spark split across 5 mechs, destined to someday reunite and remind the world that unity is always fragmented. Onyx Prime became legend, a spectral beast roaming forgotten lands, guardian of nature, judge of artificial sin. The rest faded. Some became starlight, others shadow. All left Cybertron behind. And in their absence, a vacuum. The end of the age. Without the 13, the Golden Age crumbled. The civilizations they forged fell into confusion. Technologies once guided by divine purpose became tools of greed. Their artifacts were scavenged, misused, worshipped. And the planet? It forgot. The primes became myths, then legends, then lies. Only a few archivists, monks, madmen, remembered their names. Even Primus went silent, the legacy of their fall. Yet their fingerprints remain. Every matrix, every spark, every voice that calls for justice, for freedom, for purpose, echoes with their essence. The matrix of leadership, once held by the 13th Prime, carried fragments of each of them. Their wisdom, their burden, their regret. And when Optimus Prime rose, when his voice declared hope in the darkest hour, it was not new. It was Echo. Their failure became his foundation. Because sometimes gods must fall so that mortals can rise. Echoes of the past, their lasting impact. You cannot kill a myth. You can only forget it. But the Primes, they were never meant to be forgotten. Their temples are dust. Their names are mistranslated. Their relics are scattered across moons, locked in vaults, embedded in war machines they never meant to build. And yet, the Primes endure, not in flesh, but in resonance, the matrix of leadership. To most, it is a weapon, a glowing artifact, a symbol of authority. The torch passed from prime to prime, wielded by heroes in moments of Cybertron's greatest need. But the matrix of leadership was never meant for war. It was memory. Forged from the final essence of the 13th Prime, the matrix carries not just wisdom, but presence. Fragments of the others rest within it. Dreams of Solus, warnings of Vector, the silence of Alpha Trion, even the shadow of Megatronus, whispering still. It is more than an object. It is a chorus. When Optimus Prime first touched it, he did not hear commands. He heard voices. He felt the weight of the entire lineage pressing into his spark, not demanding obedience, but offering guidance. And every Prime after him has carried that same burden. Because the Matrix is not just legacy, it is atonement. Lessons passed through time. The Primes fell, but their failures taught what their words could not. From Solus Prime's sorrow came the Forge, and with it, the principle that creation must never outpace wisdom. From Liege Maximo's silver tongue came the knowledge that influence without truth is corruption. From Megatronus's grief came the warning. Passion without clarity becomes destruction. Every new leader, every rising faction, even every rebellion echoes with these lessons. The Autobots were born not to replicate the Primes, but to correct them, to lead without domination, to believe without blind zeal, to wield power without losing the spark that holds it. But this is not always followed, because even failure can inspire, and not all who remember the Primes seek to learn from them. The rise of new heresies. In the deep voids, there are those who speak the old names with reverence, not to honor, but to revive. Breakaway cults speak of Megatronus not as the betrayer, but as the true Prime, the only one willing to burn the old world to forge a new one. There are whispers that Solus can be brought back, that the Requiem Blaster still holds part of her spark. Even darker forces claim Unicron speaks again. That Liege Maxima was never truly gone, but merely waiting. And in hidden archives, scholars debate, were the Primes too human, too flawed to be divine? Or were their flaws the reason Cybertron endured at all? Dormant, or watching. It is said that when Cybertron is on the brink, the Matrix will flare and the voices will return. Some believe the Primes are not dead, merely dormant, that they observe through the well, that they live in the walls of the Allspark, that they ride starlight, waiting for the moment when their wisdom and their judgment are needed once more. Vector Prime's chronolock is said to flicker. Onyx Prime's beast form has been glimpsed in deep space. Nexus fragments have begun to glow. And Alpha Trion? Some say he never left at all. The spark of belief. Whether the Primes return or remain legends is irrelevant, because they have already done what all myths must. They changed the world. Their echoes live in every code of honor, in every spark ignited by courage, in every hand that lifts another. And so, the final question is not where they are, but what they became. Perhaps they are not above us. Perhaps they are within. I'd like to end it by saying, when you speak of destiny, remember who wrote it, and decide for yourself if they were right.